He was an airman first, joining the U.S. Army Corps during World War II. After the war ended, he returned to the U.S. and remained active duty military until deploying once again to fly combat missions, this time in the Korean War. But when he wasn't serving his country during wartime, the tail gunner took some time out of his schedule to break a few records on the track. He won 3 Olympic medals at the 1948 Olympics, was honorably discharged from the Air Force in 1952, and immediately returned to the Olympics to medal twice more. Today is Tuesday, July 22nd, 2025, and on this day in 1952, Tuskegee Airman turned Olympian Mal Whitfield took gold in the 800 meters at the 1952 Olympics in Helsinki. I'm your host, Running Up That Hillary, and you are listening to Today in Running History. It is once again Tat Tuesday, which means that this episode of Today in Running History is sponsored by my race tats. These are the temporary tattoos with motivational sayings that I wear pretty much during every single race that I run. And since I live and race in Texas, which is basically an outdoor sauna for 4 or 5 months out of the year, it's important to point out that my race tats are completely sweatproof. So something that I've seen more and more recently within the running community, and I am sure y'all have noticed it as well, is glitter. So glitter hair gel, those little glitter face freckles, you name it, if they can glitterize it, people will love it. So a few months back, my race tats got in on the glittery action, and they now have 3 of their best-selling mantra tattoos available with the option of glitter. They also have this awesome bundle pack, which comes with 5 each of the glitter tattoos, plus a bonus powered by pixie dust tat and 2 glitter stickers. So check all of those out, as well as all of their other fantastic products at the link in the episode description. And even better, listeners of Today in Running History can save 20% off your order from my race tats by using my code Hillary at checkout. Now let's talk about the man they called Marvelous Mal Whitfield. Malvin Whitfield was born on the Texas coast in 1924, but at age 4 moved to Los Angeles with his mom and older sister after his father died. His interest in track and field began in 1932 when 8-year-old Mal snuck into the Olympics, being held just a few miles away. There, he watched fellow American Eddie Tolan win the 100 meters, a race I happen to be covering on August 1st, so be sure to tune in for that episode as well. But back to Mal Whitfield. After his older sister, Betty, gained custody of him, the two spent the remainder of his childhood in the Watts neighborhood of LA. It was there that Mal began his track career by running for his junior high and high school teams. Then in 1943, at the height of the Second World War, and when he was just 19 years old, Mal Whitfield became a Tuskegee Airman in what we now know as the U.S. Air Force. And if y'all are unfamiliar with the Tuskegee Airmen, they were the first ever Black men to serve as pilots in the United States military. So during World War I, Black men were barred completely from becoming military pilots for the U.S. And during the 2 decades that followed, leaders from the NAACP fought to get that restriction removed. Finally, in 1939, a law was passed permitting Black men to become pilots, though not desegregating the U.S. military and allocating funds for their formal training. This training took place in Tuskegee, Alabama, hence the name, and by the time the U.S. entered World War II at the end of 1941, there were nearly 500 Black aviators in that unit. The full story of these men is absolutely fascinating, and if this was a general history or military history podcast, I would do an entire episode on the Tuskegee Airmen, but it is not. So I highly encourage all of y'all to read more about the subject on your own. But once again, back to Mal Whitfield. He served in World War II and then returned to the U.S. to run collegiately at Ohio State University, which was the alma mater of his mentor, Jesse Owens. And while he was running D1 track, Whitfield also remained an active duty member of the Air Force. In 1948, Whitfield became the national champion in the 800 meters and then qualified for that year's Olympics. And it was at these Olympics in London that Mal Whitfield became the first ever active duty member of the U.S. military to win an Olympic medal. He took the bronze in the 400 meters, ran the anchor leg of the 4x400 meter team that won gold, and then set a new Olympic record in the 800 meters, winning a second gold medal. Okay, so at this point, you'd probably think Mal Whitfield was an accomplished enough athlete that maybe he'd want to leave his military career behind and focus on running full time. And he was eventually honorably discharged in 1952, but not until after flying multiple combat missions during the Korean War. He returned from that deployment just in time to represent the United States at the 1952 Olympics in Helsinki. The 800-meter races began on July 20th when Mal Whitfield easily won his heat with a time of 1:52.5. The next day, Whitfield came in a close second during the semifinals, and the following day, exactly 73 years ago today, Mal Whitfield defended his 800-meter Olympic gold, tying his own Olympic record with a time of 1:49.2. And remember, guys, this was back before there was automatic timing, so races were only measured to a tenth of a second, which made it much more likely that records like Whitfield's would be tied instead of broken. So Mal Whitfield returned to the US with another 2 Olympic medals to add to his collection, and then he continued to run collegiately. And in 1954, Whitfield became the first Black athlete to win the James E. Sullivan Award, which has recognized the single most outstanding athlete in the United States every year since 1930. And to give y'all an idea of how big of an award that is, here are a few of the runners who have won it over the year. Carl Lewis, Mary Decker, Joan Benoit, FloJo, Frank Shorter, Michael Johnson. And it's not restricted to runners either, with other winners including Peyton Manning, Michelle Kwan, Michael Phelps, Simone Biles, and recently Caitlin Clark. So Whitfield making that list means that he was the single best athlete in any sport in the entire country that year. After Whitfield graduated from college and retired from competitive running, he was hired by the US government as a diplomat and sports ambassador in Africa, where he remained for 47 years. He held sports clinics and coached young runners in 20 different African nations, with many of his mentees going on to win Olympic medals of their own. When Whitfield died at the age of 91 in 2015, the Corps bishop giving his graveside sermon summed up Whitfield's legacy and half-century of diplomacy in Africa perfectly. Quote, "It's like he gathered, through his service, the whole world in his arms and tried to give it to his family and his friends." That is all I have for y'all today. Thank you so much for listening. Please make sure to like, share, subscribe, follow, turn on alerts, post about how much you love the pod, and tag me on Instagram, and then join me tomorrow as we head to 1970s Kansas to meet the only athlete to ever hold the 60 and 100-meter world records at the same time. Once again, today's episode was brought to you by My Race Tats, and listeners of the pod can save 20% off your purchase by using the link in the episode description and my code Hillary at checkout. I'm your host, Running Up That Hillary, and this has been Today in Running History. To run collegiately at Ho Ho State. But back to alma mater of his alma mater. I mean, technically that one's Latin, so it's okay if I can't say it. Right? Okay. Whitfield became